Okay, we're live, but we got to let it breathe just for a moment here. Got to bring on Facebook. Y'all know the drill. Hang tight. And we are good. So, welcome in, everybody. It is the Mile High Huddle podcast. I'm your host, Chad Jensen. With me, my fellow football priest. You know him, you love him, Zack Kelberman. Zack, it's not technically accurate to say today was the final practice of training camp because, as Sean Payton iterated after practice today, no, camp's not over. We've got all of next week. These guys are still staying in the hotel. Like we're still in camp. But it is the last day of camp, observable to the general public and many of the media. So that being the case, if you had to boil down a singular takeaway, theme, whatever, storyline of these 17 days of Broncos camp that we've been able to see, what would it be?
Number one, I love what Peyton said about training camp. He said, you can't even see the light at the end of the tunnel. We're still in perpetual darkness. So that's the type of attitude. I'll say it again. The Broncos need someone to ride them and to coach them hard. And that's what he's doing. My big takeaway, camp started really roughly for Russell Wilson. He was throwing picks left and right, mostly to Justin Simmons. Even Sean Payton admitted, and he's a tough coach. He said over the last week and a half, 2 weeks or so, Russell Wilson has been leaps and bounds better. He was impressed by his script ability to make plays. He was impressed by his movement, which is something that we thought would be maybe in a decline going into his age 35 season. Russ has been the MVP for every Broncos practice, I would say, over the last week. And you can't just say it's because of injuries. I mean, PS2's been in there, Randy Gregory's been in there. They've had their big hitters, and still you see the long moon balls to Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy. You see even Jalen Virgil getting involved, Brandon Johnson before he went down. This is what we wanted for Russ to make those around him better. And he's making Cortland 2019 Cortland. He's making Jerry Jeudy into hopefully the Pro Bowl receiver we think he can be. And he's making the lower end types, the Jalen Virgils, the Brandon Johnsons, the Montreal Washingtons even into viable receivers. So the number one takeaway is that Russ has improved wholesale. And I hope that comes out on Saturday against the 49ers.
Yeah, it was interesting because Luke Patterson, who's been at every practice covering training camp for Mile High Huddle, he kind of wrote up a summation article today, being that it was the last practice. And he first of all, he put Russ as the kind of offensive player of camp, right? Or offensive MVP, for lack of a better term. And then actual camp MVP, like the guy who shined the brightest, Zach Allen. And so both of those have a positive implication for the Broncos, and fans, I think, should be excited because, look, you spent a lot of money on Zach Allen, replacing kind of Draymond Jones on the defensive line. You opted to go with Zach instead of Draymond. So you really need that investment to pay some dividends, and so far so good. But really the big thing being, if this ship's going to go anywhere, if the needle's going to be moved at all, Russ has to take many steps forward over what he was last year. And as you just illustrated, and Luke has broken down throughout camp. And one thing to keep in mind is Luke is the farthest thing possible from a Russell Wilson apologist. All right. Like Zach and I, if we're watching every single practice, we're probably going, Zach, like, forgive him for that. Hey, the receiver alligator arm, that one. Yeah, he'll be all right. We maybe look past a few things just because we're positive and we want it maybe to work out a little bit too much.
Yeah.
Luke doesn't think that way. And he's kind of, I wouldn't say been negative about Russ since last fall, but definitely skeptical. I'll put it that way. He's been a Russ skeptic. And for him to say Russ has been the offensive player of camp, that's really, really positive for Broncos fans.
Yeah, I think a lot of his critics, maybe even Luke included, will come around that Russ is not going to be as bad as he was last year. That was the ultimate exception to the rule. A player like him does not suddenly forget how to play football. You don't break down that quickly. I think it was a lack of coaching, a lack of offensive line success, and we saw that kind of come out in a negative way against the Cardinals. But I care mostly about what Sean Payton says. And if Sean Payton says that it's been impressive and he's highlighting different parts of Russ's game that's gotten better, that to me is the most positive side.
David McElrath jumping in early before we went live with a very generous super chat. Appreciate you, big dog. He's saying good evening to everybody and that it's exciting to be a Broncos fan. Hashtag 12 and 5. Buckham ×3, MHH for life, Denver Broncos for life. Really appreciate you. The one they call Papa Bear in his neck of the woods. Thank you, David. And yes, never boring being a Broncos fan. Always exciting, regardless of how it shakes out in the standings. We also have Sam Bam, who jumped in with a very generous super chat before we went live. Sam, so great to see you, big dog. Hope you're doing well. He says, hey, everyone, my prediction is that the Broncos go somewhere in between 20 and 0 as Super Bowl champs, or 0-17 and get Caleb Williams. Go Broncos. Yeah, that's a prediction of extremes. Obviously, the tongue-in-cheek there from Sam, who we've come to know quite well. But honestly, Zach, nothing is really, other than the offensive line, all right, and just kind of how sketchy it looked and leaky last Friday night.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't really seen anything this camp as far as developments, things happening that take me off of my 9 over-under being 9 wins for the Broncos.
If we're talking team-wide, the only criticism I have is the tackling that we saw in, or the lack of, against the Cardinals last week. But VJ talked about how it has to get cleaned up. Sean Payton talked about how it has to get cleaned up. But on the offensive side, if they can get Garrett Bowles situated and the rest of their starters stay healthy, including Mike McGlinchey, I'm right there with you. I have no reason to believe why they can't go 10-7. But Sam, I will take that bet for sure.
Man, Broncos need McGlinchey back very, very soon, because that was really sketch on Friday night in Arizona. And Isaiah Prince, hey man, I'm not going to completely pan him and write him off based on one night, but like Cam Fleming, Isaiah Prince, they're not it. That Ivy League kid, Alex
Pawlowski or whatever,
Pazlowski, whatever it is, he actually looked like the best tackle on the field for the Broncos, and that's a little bit concerning as well. We've got the GLP in the house, aka the swashbuckler, aka he who goes hard, Gary Palmer. What's up, bro?
Thank you, Gary.
Hi, Chad, Zach, Dylan, and Scott. I'm starting to feel better about the season. Go Broncos and Buckham. My question to you, Gary, is what has made you feel better? You know, if you had some misgivings or some anxieties, what have you seen that has kind of flipped that script? Let us know in the chat, Zach. But what are your thoughts?
I also want to know what made him feel bad about the season. I mean, was it not believing in Russ? Was it the offensive line play? Was it something recent, Gary, that made you feel this way? Or were you always apprehensive going into the preseason? I think it's a time for optimism, though, because even in that Cardinals game, as bad as the OL looked, as bad as the tackling was, Russell Wilson was much improved. You know, he was a different, more decisive, more commanding quarterback that was making every throw when given the time. So I'm very much encouraged.
Guys, we're going to grab this super chat from the Duchess. Before we do, though, I'm going to give you a quick update on the super chat rankings for the month of August. As you know, every single month we take the top 10 finishers on super chat. Names go in a hat. We do a live raffle during one of the broadcasts, and the winner gets a Broncos jersey of their choosing. And it's just a small thing we can do to give back to our great, great community. And so here's the current rankings, you know, not counting tonight. So this is as of end of business yesterday. Number 1, FA, who has leapfrogged a few to get to the top. The Duchess currently at number 2. We'll see how that shakes out by the end of the month. Gary leapfrogging quite a few to get to number 3. Zeus McPeak, who it's been so great, Zach, seeing Zeus being active in the conversations again lately. It's really cool. At number 4, Naj at number 5. I mean, these are 5 legendary, mythical Mount Rushmore superstars right here. And then DWI guys at 6, Ethan. Troy at 7, who's done some rising there. The Lady D, Deanna Hendry at 8. Jasmine, who's just been going off lately, at number 9, jumping, doing some leapfrogging. And then Gregory at 10. And then just outside, a couple names real quick, David McElrath at 11, who has done some climbing. Sam Bam, Divine Breaks, Brent P., Mike Edel. So there's your update on the super chat rankings for this month. And with that said, Zach, let's grab Michaela. Love you. Appreciate you. Hope you're doing well tonight. She says, getting nervous about the season. I don't want to be excited because I don't want my heart to break again this year. MHH rocks. See, I'm glad you're being honest about this, Michaela, because really, Zach, I think this is how a large cross-section of Broncos country actually feels, is It's like we want to believe, but we've put our hand on that stove too many times and gotten burned. So it's like just anxiety, trepidation, fear, nervousness, daring to hope, don't want to get hurt. So totally understand where you're at. But again, take some confidence in Sean Payton, because guys, even though some things looked leaky on Friday night with the O-line, and it took a little while, Zach, for things to kind of get clicking, it looked a little bit disjointed offensively at first. Dude, we don't even know what the main objectives for the offensive coaches were for that game, besides the obvious of scoring points, like why certain tackles were playing, why certain combinations of this or that, like what were they trying to see happen at right tackle, what kind of concepts were they trying to prove out, what were they doing with Russ? We haven't seen anything, though, as far as Sean Payton's real hand, the true hand that he's holding. You have no idea right now. It's still straight poker face, no way to deduce it. So don't, again, and this isn't specifically for you, Michaela, and then Zach, I'm serving it back, but don't everybody go jumping to conclusions and lasting conclusions anyway, based on preseason game 1.
Which was also skewed, by the way. The pass run ratio was like 27-5 or 22-5, something like that. That's not going to be the case in the regular season. They were, intentionally vanilla, and yet even the offense, when it got going, they looked like they were clicking better than at any point last season. So it's a lot like aliens. You mentioned we want to believe in the Broncos. We want to, confirm that it's not just a hypothetical or a theory, but you can't be, and I'm not talking to you, Michaela, specifically, I'm talking to every Broncos fan who has apprehension. You can't have yourself so closed off. You have to open your football heart and let love in. I just sound so happy, but that's, you gotta have faith that your team, that you're a fanatic for, fan stands for fanatic, fanatical, that they're going to turn around, and this is finally the year. I promise you, at the very least, Chad, it won't be as bad as last season.
Agreed. I really think it's going to be a return to normalcy, and that might not be a Super Bowl, obviously, but again, competitive relevance, no longer being a doormat in the AFC, no longer being that bullied and pushed around, kid on the playground relative to the AFC West, the Chiefs, the Raiders, all that stuff. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun this year. Drake, what's up, dude? Our compatriot, our colleague on the Colts beat, does what we do on the Colts side. Great to see you, Drake. Thanks for the super chat, bro. My dudes, he says, happy Thursday. Are either of you deterred by Russell's performance? I vote it's not a concern, because it's a new and complex offense to adjust to. Still think he's solid in Peyton's scheme. I'm not deterred at all. No, up to this point. And I freely recognize and admit, Zach, that, my analysis, my takes could be biased by my burning desire to see the Broncos have success. Okay. But I am an optimist, and very few of what I saw except for the first drive. So take out the first drive, everything that happened after that, none of the poor results we saw, in my opinion, could be laid at the feet of Russ. It was laid at the feet of either offensive line leakiness or wide receiver drops. So, and then on that final drive, Zach, to see him really, find a way, make a way, go back to Jerry after a really costly third down drop, get the touchdown. Like, you're scratching the surface. You're popping the pressure that I think was kind of a little bit on everybody's shoulders after 3 unsuccessful, the missed field goals too, to go along with those initial possessions. And I think it was a little bit of a relief and a release for the offense to get that touchdown. What I'm hoping to see in San Francisco, and it'll be easier said than done because that's a good defense when the ones are on the field, is hopefully it maybe opened up some floodgates. We'll see.
How about the fact that they played that game without Javonte, in their first game without Tim Patrick, without Mike McGlinchey, Garrett Bowles' first game after major leg surgery? There were a lot of moving parts, and that's why I'm not overreacting to half or a quarter of the first preseason game. Drake, I know that, you have a rookie quarterback who you're high on in Indy, and I get that. But in these parts, on this podcast, at least, we're still very high on Russ. And I take the opposite approach. I wasn't deterred at all. I wasn't concerned. I was actually encouraged when Russ started settling down and finding his rhythm. To me, my opinion, based on what my eyes saw, what my brain processed, he looked more in command. He looked more decisive. He was getting rid of the ball faster. He was going on to his second, third read. He wasn't forcing anything. He had no crucial turnover. And he did all this, by the way, being hit on 64% of his dropbacks. That, to me, is a sign of good things to come.
Which, again, was the most in the NFL in the first week of the preseason. So, for what it's worth. But, Drake, thanks for the super, bro. So great to see you. Okay, KB in the house, MHH staff writing alum. What's going on, bro? How are you? He says, what's up, fellas? My new yearly question. If you could go to any road game this year, which game do you pick? He says, I'm going to the Raiders in Vegas. Always want to check out the Vegas stadium. Yeah, I need to get to one of those games. And, you know, it's I as a happily married man, you know, Vegas isn't that big of a draw or appeal to me. But, Zach, I know you love it when we have an excuse business-wise to go to Vegas.
Yeah, and to the Raiders' credit, that stadium looks amazing. I know people say it looks like a giant Roomba, but it's state-of-the-art, very sleek looking. So good shout there, Kenny. If I had to pick one, taking away Kansas City, the obvious, I'd say Buffalo on November 13th. That's a primetime game. I've always wanted to see a game in Orchard Park, whatever it's called now, just because of the vibe and the atmosphere there. Should be chilly. I don't know. It should be a good football game, football weather. So I would be interested in seeing that up close.
Not to cop out, but I concur on that front. Buffalo. Plus, I have friends that are about this close to being family that live in upstate New York. So for me, it would be a great opportunity to kill two birds with one stone. But the Chiefs, that's what I'll segue to is I would like to. I've never been to a away game at Arrowhead for the Broncos, and that would be an experience, especially if they could sneak in there and snap the streak. But yeah, good question, though, KB. Hope you enjoy that Raiders game, bro.
Thank you, KB.
We have Mike Reno checking in, saying, what's up? Hello, Chad, Zach, and Scott. Are y'all stoked for the season?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Me too. Hashtag MHH for life, Denver Broncos for life. Most definitely, my friend, very excited, and we hope everything is going good on your end and in your neck of the woods with the misses. I don't want to spill any beans that you don't want spilled, but just know we're really happy to hear the positive developments and things that have been going on with Mrs. Reno. So positive vibes and prayers and thoughts and all that still going to Clan Reno. So appreciate you, bud.
Thank you, Mike.
Oh, I didn't see this. KB with a number 2. Thank you, Kenny. Did you see the Tim Jenkins Drew Lock breakdown on YouTube? He gave Lock a lot of love. No, dude. I haven't. I don't really watch his channel. This is a recent thing, KB, or is this like from back when he was still a Bronco? Do you know what he's talking about, Zach?
I feel like it's too little too late to show Drew love. Maybe he was breaking down last week's preseason game. Locke had a nice touchdown pass where he zipped one in there, but he's a Seattle player, so I don't really concern myself too much with old Drew anymore.
Yeah, let's look at it real quick. Drew last week, 17-24 for the Seahawks, 191 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. Finished with a rating of 104.7. So that's about kind of, I mean, that's the positive end, Zach, of kind of the Drew Lock scale we saw is like, if you could see him go keep a touchdown to interception ratio somewhere around 2 touchdowns to 1 pick. And anytime a rating's over 100, that's definitely progress for Drew.
Call me crazy, but I still want to see what he can do with one unblemished season as a starter. I'm not saying the Broncos starter, just in general. I hope he gets that chance someday. He looks like a improved quarterback. I'm always kind of a Drew fan, Chad, but I'm not a Seattle fan by any means.
It was interesting, though. There was a story. If we didn't have so much going on with the actual Broncos, I would have written this up. So, like, if the comment I'm about to paraphrase for you guys would have come, say, you know, a month ago, I probably would have written about this. But Pete Carroll talked about how Drew Lock has kind of been different this summer compared to last year, and that he seemed more kind of, I don't know, relaxed and at the same time focused on the deal, because for the first time, really, Zach, since he's been a pro, he wasn't pitted in any kind of an open competition. The Seahawks very clearly invested in Geno after a phenomenal year. And even though they brought Drew back, it was under the clear understanding and mandate that you are the backup. And so if you're Drew Lock, what Pete Carroll's trying to say is, not to derail our conversation too much here. So last thing, what he's trying to say is going into this, knowing what his role is, knowing that he's not necessarily singing for his supper and striving for this and the unknowns of that, it's resulted in a more poised, composed, efficient Drew. So we'll see how that maybe comes out in the wash for Drew Lock down the road.
You mean a young quarterback needed time to kind of grow into himself? What a shocking concept that is. Maybe it's my bias at play here. I don't think that Geno replicates his season from last year, so maybe Drew will get his shot one way or the other. But he will be a free agent, I believe, next offseason. So there's always that chance. Could come back.
This is a good point from Scott. Russ with a 102.4 rating in preseason game 1, and he's washed. Levels. Phil, what's up, brother? In Tucson, proving Broncos country is not a geographic location. It's a hashtag state of being, baby. He says, good evening, Chad, Zach, and Deacon Scott. Hey, guys, how many plays will the starters be in against the Niners? Hashtag Buck 'em Go Broncos. Zach, break it down for him.
Sean Payton said today that the first teamers will play between 20 to 24 snaps against the Niners on Saturday. That would be an increase from the 15 to 17 they played against the Cardinals. And so that's the deal. It should be it sounds like about a half, that many plays for the ones. Javonte is the only exception here, as you guys know by now by reading the article. Javonte Williams will play against San Francisco, but he's only going to play, I think Peyton said 10 to 12 snaps. He might get a few touches, might get a catch, and they'll yank him and, live to fight another week. It's good acclimation for Javonte, dip his toe in the water, but don't expose him to unnecessary injury.
Exactly. Phil, so great to see you, brother. Really appreciate you. Hope all is well in your neck of the woods. All right, let's grab this one here from, did it jump on me? There, that's what I was going to, look, dude, vintage, rocking the vintage hat like a boss in Philly. This is a guy who has one of the most outgoing, passionate Broncos fans we've come across in our time doing this, and he's well away from Denver. He's another like exemplar of the hashtag state of being. Troy, what's up, dude? AKA Eclipse Stormborn. Jumping in with a super chat, just like the old days, saying happy Thursday, Priest and Broncos family. Just checking in to say, hey, peace and love from Philly. Ready for the season to start, and I hope Riley Moss is better soon. Denver Broncos for life, MHHUN, hashtag state of being. Yeah, he's bringing up some old time memories here. What they had. There was a crew of the, I would call them the OG superstars. There was a little segment of the OG MHH superstars, Zach, from like circa 2019, 2020, including Troy, that called themselves the MHHUN. Of course, Duke, RIP, was amongst that. Smouse in the House was amongst them. Randall up in Canada was, and there are a few others, of course, in Troy. So anyway, great to see you, bro. And yeah, what do you know, Zach, about the Riley Moss situation and his injury?
Yeah, just seeing Eclipse and the hashtags there definitely takes me back. So definitely appreciate you hopping in. Good to see you again. Riley Moss underwent, as most of y'all probably know by now, core muscle surgery at the beginning of training camp. And the expectation was he should be back by week 1, which is fast approaching. It's September 10th. So, 3 weeks from now or so. But I've heard nothing negative about Moss's recovery from that. He's been working off to the side during practice, rehabbing, training that way. And hopefully by week 1, he'll contribute in some way. Might not be an extensive amount of snaps, but they'll work him into the lineup.
I see Brent P in the house. Great to see you, big dog. I hope you got to see where you were on the rankings for August. Suffice to say, you're just outside the top 10 for what it's worth, but great to see you in the chat tonight. Drake with number 2 replying to his initial super chat saying, amen, Zach. I like Wilson and have for years. I want to see him succeed in the Mile High City, and I want to see him get blocking because he didn't see it in Seattle post Marshawn Lynch. Best of luck to the Broncos. Yeah, it's been a minute since Russ had truly like a stable offensive line situation.
God, you want to hear my PTSD? I saw Lynch and I thought of Paxton right away because they he played for them for a brief period as well, but it's been a long road for Broncos quarterback since Peyton Manning. And you're right, they finally get Russ, and the same thing happens to him that happened to him in Seattle. The reason why he wanted out of Seattle was he was getting hit too much. And what do the Broncos do? They allow a league high 63 sacks last season. It was just an absurd number. So they have to get the OL right. It's the only part of last week's game that I am concerned with was the blocking. Garrett Bowles was terrible. The right tackle, no answer for McGlinchey there. Ben Powers was worked on a few reps as well. If they can just get the front five stabilized, I have literally no doubt that we'll see a Russ rebirth.
Big shout out real quick to Big Earn. What's up, brother? Great to see you. Broncos country only. That's it. That's the bottom line. Always great to have Big Earn in the house. Mike jumping in to say, sure hope Pookie has a positive outing this weekend. Confidence is amazing. Yeah, I mean, for the vast majority of Broncos country, the last thing indelible in everybody's mind is that injury against the Raiders, that multi-ligament knee injury. But let me tell you something. His confidence, he's already displayed in training camp, like confidence on his knee, confidence on his recovery, no problem. They're going to do some rocking. He's going to do some rocking and rolling on Saturday. It's going to be dope. I can't wait to see him. Even just 8-10 snaps, whatever it shakes out to be, he'll make his presence felt.
I think it's the best of both worlds and very intelligent by Sean Payton to work him in, get him some playing time, but not too much, and not heighten the risk beyond what it already is. But we talked about this extensively. The recovery for Javonte is as much, if not more, mental than it is physical. He has to get hit on that knee. He has to get tackled. He has to just cut on that knee in a real life game situation. And that's going to give him confidence, like the comment was talking about, to get him back to the previous level. Just the fact, though, Chad, that he's playing in this game, that he's going to be ready by week 1 is still extraordinary. His recovery has been otherworldly.
Yeah, no doubt. He's a freak in more ways than one. Sam Bam with number 2 tonight. Thank you, bro. He says, I'll be honest, I still want Drew Lock to succeed. Still sticking with the idea that he got screwed over by Vic Fangio. Would be interesting to see what Locke would do with a coach like Peyton. It's funny because not to derail too much of tonight's show on Drew Lock, but while he was still a Bronco, Zach, and we were lamenting his plight with the likes of Skangs, who was better than Shermer and all that, but we're like, whoa, how would it be to see him with one of the next level QB whisperers currently in the league? And we mentioned Sean Payton, and we mentioned Kyle Shanahan and a few others. So yeah, 2 ships in the night. But something tells me if Sean Payton had Drew Lock on his roster and had to turn to him, you would see a better version of Drew Lock. But at the same time, he's not really a Sean Payton type of quarterback. He's not really the cerebral type. He's athletic and all that, but he's more of honestly, he'd be more of like a Kyle Shanahan, Mike Shanahan quarterback, like a like a Jay Cutler light, old school, taking it back type guy, more so than Peyton, for me, at first coming to mind. But hey, we're in La La Land right now anyway, because Drew Lock's a Seahawk, Sean Payton's a Bronco. What the heck's going on?
I just looked it up. Drew Lock's birthday is November 10th. I wonder, Chad, will he be getting a phone call from Vic Fangio wishing him happy birthday? I very much doubt that. I literally, years later now, I still can't believe it went down that way, that he was, just gushing over Teddy Bridgewater, the fact that it was his birthday, and then he was reminded and he goes, oh yeah, it is. Just the bias against his own quarterback is astounding to me. But he's free from Vic now, and I wish him well.
Troy, what's up, brother? Great to see you. He says, hey, guys, can't wait. Watch now, but we'll catch you later. Have a great show. Love the Sean Payton interviews. Always gives me confidence for the season. Checking in is the Fondonkey, as he's known on Twitter, with the super chat. So thank you, Troy. Much love. And yes, watching Sean Payton speak and just kind of toy with the press and just handle them. You know what I'm saying? Just handle. It's quite refreshing. It's like having an adult back in the building, really. But Brent, throwing down a top rope super
chat.
Thank you
so much, Brent.
Looking to mosey on up the rankings of super chat this month. Thank you, bro. Seriously, he says, great show, Chad and Zach, as always. I look forward to seeing a coach that knows how to scheme our weapons open. it will be a great change. Indeed. Yeah. I mean, I can't remember the author, the NFL, was it NFL.com author that didn't want to give Russell Wilson any credit for beating a zero blitz on fourth down on that Jerry
CBS,
Jeudy.
Will Brinson.
That's right. That's right. But still, like, you have a coach that knows how to scheme guys open, and you have a quarterback who's being groomed by that coach to kind of get back to. I mean, again, guys, last year was such a bizarre outlier from Russ. Like, he was a guy who, of all the quarterbacks, of the preceding decade, if you would have talked to me about, hey, Chad, who are the 5 most clutch quarterbacks? Meaning, who would you want to have, like, the chips are down for your team? You got to get that third down. You got to get that field goal with 90 seconds left on the clock, whatever. Russ would have been in my top 5. Like, he was a stingy, really poised, really just on point guy, especially in critical situations. And, there was some damage done to him last year through the storm of incompetence that blew through the Mile High City. But Sean Payton's reeling him back in and kind of helping him relearn. Oh yeah, I already knew all this stuff. Whoa, yeah. It's going to be a really fun thing to watch.
And from an off the field standpoint, coming from a fairly petty person, admittedly, I love how petty and kind of vindictive Sean Payton could be. Today, he had an interview with Kay Adams, former NFL Network, has her own show now, and he gave the interview, and what looked like it wasn't. It looked like a bucket hat, though. And we all know the story behind that. And recently, Garrett Wilson from the Jets, the receiver, wore a bucket hat, and he more or less admitted he was trolling subtly Sean Payton. So what does Payton come out and do? Wears his own bucket hat. I just love the FUs that Payton throws out there on a subtle basis.
Maybe it would be a bridge too far to call it 4D chess, but I can't wait for week 5, man. That's going to be a spicy meatball.
Can't wait.
Mike Reno and Brent, bro, thank you, dude. So generous, helping us keep the lights on, big dog. Mike Reno says, so can't do it this year, but my wife wants to go to the meet and greet in 2024. It will be amazing to hang out with you guys. Yes, that will be rad. And it would be an honor, absolutely, to meet the two of you. So we definitely look forward to that, Mike. The original Dizzy D in the house. What's up, dude? That's a newer name that I don't recognize on Super Chat. So what's good? Welcome. We are playoffs bound. Hashtag Mile High Soldier style. Realistic Broncos friendly Madden roster download updated realistic by the okay, so he's blasting some. I don't even know what this means. He's trying to,
but it's provocative. It gets the people going.
I guess something Madden oriented. I mean, download his updated roster. I don't know. I kind of phased out on Madden. Zach, like circa PS2 days, for real. Yeah. Lady D jumping in from the top rope.
Thank you so much, Deanna,
who over the last year has come on and become a bona fide Mount Rushmore superstar here at MHH. So great to see you, Deanna. Hope you're doing well. She says, great to catch you guys live. So excited to see the team play this weekend. Go Broncos, MHH for life. Yeah, it does feel good, Zach, having Broncos football to look forward to every weekend again.
And enjoy this game, because Sean Payton made it sound like the starters will not play much, if at all, in the final preseason game against the Rams next week. They'll have joint practices, but it might be a backup bowl like the 4th preseason game used to be back in the day. But it's going to be a fun one this weekend. It's always fun when the Niners and Broncos get together. Kyle Shanahan and the Denver franchise doing battle once more.
Deanna with a second top rope.
Thank you so much, Deanna.
She says, I love our coach. So tired of the media coverage bashing Russell Wilson. I sure hope he gets his revenge this year. Go Broncos, MHH for life. Bridge the gap. Broncos country. Love it. Thank you, Lady D. Really, really appreciate the Bridge the Gap shout. And yes, I do expect Russell Wilson to serve up some crow. A decent helping, Zach, for a lot of people across the fruited plain this year. So looking forward to that.
Can't wait. Again, like Chad said earlier, it might not be a Super Bowl in year 1 of the Russell Wilson-Sean Payton marriage, but they're definitely going to win more games, definitely going to be more competitive, and you'll see a much, much improved Russell Wilson, especially carrying the momentum he's built up over the last 2 weeks of training camp.
Gary answering the question from his original Super Chat, what's got him feeling better about the Broncos? He says, guys, Luke Patterson has been very glowing in his reports. He is my main source of optimism, which again is not nothing. It's noteworthy because Luke has traditionally been since, I don't know, Zach, quarter of the way through the beginning of last season, kind of Russell Wilson skeptical. So you can, if he says something's going well with Russ, you're like, okay, something's going well with Russ. So that's what Gary's trying to say here.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate Luke for telling it like it is and reporting objectivity, not subjectivity. His notebooks have been really good, and we're happy that you've been enjoying them, Gary. But I still want to know what got you down on the Broncos to begin with. Let us know in the comments.
Sam Bam with a third super chat saying, football's back 3 weeks from tonight. Go Broncos and go Lions. Yes, indeed. And it's going to be here before we know it. Seriously. And right now, there's a game going. Browns-Eagles, for what it's worth. We'll see how the Deshaun Watson thing shakes out. Here's the answer, though, Zach, from Gary. I've been trying not to be too optimistic, but Luke is infectious. Okay, there you go. There you go. I don't know. I think speaking for a little bit for Gary here, probably that Zach was just overall the magnitude by which Russ jumped the shark last year. And then that being so closely on the heels of not only the cost of trading for him, but, the $250 million extension. That's what I think has a lot of people going, man, we really hope this Sean Payton things works out. But anyway, Gary, yes, good to hear. And I'm sure Luke will love hearing this as well.
It's why we put out the camp notebooks. It's why we send people like Luke and Thomas to training camp. We put the information out there down the middle, and you guys can take it how it is. But for you, in your case, Gary, we are definitely happy that you're encouraged by that because, like we were talking about, Luke will tell you, like, he's going to call it down the middle. He's not going to have any bias one way or the other. And if he says Russ, and what he's seen with his own eyes, that Russ is getting better, it's something worth taking note of.
All right, so we're at about 37 minutes. So any burning topics, get them in the chat. But Zach, I kind of want to segue a little bit to just kind of look forward to the Niners game a little bit, and talk about just kind of a few storylines to monitor. For me, the biggest thing I'm going to be paying attention to, aside from just how is the offense doing, is really Sean Payton in his Monday press conference following the game in Arizona. He didn't exactly dismiss the offensive line play and the failure to protect Russ in Arizona, but he kind of minimized it and very confidently said, we will get that cleaned up. So I want to see what that looks like, 1 week removed. And it won't be easy because, again, that's a pretty ferocious Niners front.
Joe Lombardi was talking about it yesterday, the Broncos OC, about the offensive line play. And he kind of shared the same ambivalence about the issue that Sean Payton had, whereas it is a problem, but it's not a disaster. It's not a catastrophe. It can get corrected. And the way Lombardi broke it down was some of the players, I assume he means Garrett Bowles subtly, were reverting back to their old ways. And I assume he means Butch Barry's ways, the former Broncos OL coach. So it's going to take some time. I've said this ad nauseum. The offensive line is something that takes the longest to come together because the only way it does come together is with reps together on the field in game situations, not in practice, not in simulations, but in games. So the more they go forward, the more they play together, especially when McGlinchey comes back, that should get cleaned up.
Quick segue from a thermonuclear super chat.
Wow.
The third of the night from the Lady D. Seriously, hats off to you. Thank you so much, Deanna. We love you. We appreciate you.
The MVD.
Yes. And we don't take this lightly. It's very, very, very meaningful. And we appreciate you so much. Seriously. She says, looking forward to the meet and greet. So excited to meet everyone. I love that we are getting closer to the season opener. #MHH for life. Yes. And as you probably know by now, Deanna, you were one of the factors why we pushed the MHH meet and greet from our traditional kind of week 3-ish of, which would have been September, late September to October, because we knew you couldn't have made it in September, but you could make it in October. So trust when we say we're looking forward to it as well.
Thank you. I mean, what words can really show our gratitude other than thank you? But thank you so much, Deanna. It's incredible. The MVD for sure.
That's right. So we look forward to that, Lady D. Much love and respect. Patrick, hashtag Maui strong. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed, brother. Thoughts and prayers. Just so horrendous what's happened there. He says, I'm so lucky to be here and listening to you guys. Yeah, we're glad that you are safe and sound as well, my friend. And our hearts and our thoughts, our prayers go out to the victims of what has happened in Hawaii with those wildfires. It's just been atrocious.
We're lucky to have you, Patrick, and everyone else should go out and support Patrick, help him out a little bit. Lion Coffee. I think it's lioncoffee.com. Go get you some. It is incredible. I promise you. I'm a coffee stickler, and that is some of the best coffee I have ever poured down my throat. So check it out.
Chris, what's up, dude? On Facebook saying, good evening, Chad, Zach, and Scott. How pumped are you that we're wearing the snow-capped helmets against the Jets and Patriots? MHH for life, BTG for life, and Buckham. Awesome, dude. A couple of Bridge the Gap shout-outs tonight. Love that. Thank you, Chris. Yeah, it'll be fun to see the Broncos play in the snow-cap, deal. The new helmet, the white with the traditional D. It's going to be fun. I mean, I don't know. Well, I guess it'll make week 5 all the more interesting, right? It's already got plenty of storylines going for it, but yeah, that's going to be fun.
You guys know I'm not really a big uniform or helmet guy. The new helmets, the snow cap helmets, they're cool and all, but I care more about the product on the field that day in terms of the players and execution. And you kind of put a bullseye on your back with some of the comments that were made in recent weeks, and you got to go out and back that up. So whether they have a snow-capped helmet or not, they better come out of week 5 with a W.
Nick Hale, what's going on, bro? Great to see you tonight in the chat. He says, hey, fellas, I'm not familiar with Dwayne Washington. I'm glad you brought this up. This is a newsworthy item that we probably should have gotten to much earlier in tonight's show. Now that Dwayne, who is a running back, is with the Broncos, what do we know about the competition at that position now? MHH for life. BTG, another BTG shout out. Love it, dude. And Nick Hale, he's a musician himself. He's got his own music on the streaming platform. So go check him out and support him. But Nick, thank you, big dog. Zach, break it down. You had the article for us. Who is Dwayne Washington and what does his arrival mean for the competition?
Yeah, if y'all want to check it out, it's up live. I wrote it yesterday. Washington was a 2016 7th-round pick of the Lions. He spent 2 years there before a 5-year tenure in New Orleans, 4 of which came under Sean Payton. He's been mostly a special teams contributor, and even Sean said today, I don't have the quote in front of me, we can probably read it though, that he's a core 4 special teamer, so in every facet of that side of the ball, he excels in. He's 6'1", 233. He runs pretty strong, seems like a bowling ball of a running back. And I pulled a quote before we had today's quote about Washington. Peyton said this in 2019 about him. He's physical and he's got really good speed. I think those things stood out when you're watching him. He's a guy that knows what we're doing. In other words, he wanted to pick up someone that's a little familiar with his scheme, and only because Tyler Batty, whatever, I still don't know how to pronounce that name. He is dealing with an injury and probably won't play on Saturday. So they need someone just as a warm body to get in there and take some carries. But I tweeted this yesterday. It can't be good news, Chad, for Tony Jones, who's done nothing.
That was the first thing I thought when they signed him.
Nothing in training camp. I mean, he's been, I think, a bust in terms of a free agent signing. He had like 2.9 yards a carry, whereas every other running back was above 4 against the Cardinals. I can't think this is good news for him, whereas McLaughlin seems like he's cinching up the RB3 job.
Plus, one thing that Peyton emphasized greatly about Washington today, after the news broke that he's a Bronco, was not only his vision and, he's a slashing north and south type runner, but a, quote, 4-core special teams player. And he's in really good shape. So he's a very valuable guy to have as your 3rd, 4th, 5th guy, just pushing that bottom of that roster. And unfortunately, he's not special enough as a runner to be kind of a assumed incumbent guy that just like a Samaje Perine, for example, that is going to make the roster, but he's not necessarily your number one running back. But he's a guy that teams like to keep close because he's dang handy to have in a pinch, and he does a lot of the dirty work. And he realized through his path to get to the NFL that he had to specialize on special teams in the third phase. And so that's really valuable to this particular coaching staff, especially with Mike Westhoff being here as the assistant head coach. Eclipse, Troy, number 2 tonight. Bro, thank you. He says, what week is the meet and greet this season? I was planning to come to Denver for week 2 against Washington, the Washington TBDs. It is October 22nd. So was it week 7?
Mm-hmm.
Week 7 Packers. October 22nd, my friend. That's the answer.
Hope to see you there, Troy. Hope to see everyone there. It's going to be an amazing meet and greet. I think our best yet, Chad, and another W with us in attendance.
Scott, I'm trying to compete, but it's hard. LOL. What does he mean?
With super chats
throwing down the stars, dude. Hey, you're in the running, bro. You're in the running. So we unfortunately don't have the same means currently. It's been this way for about 9 months to track stars on Facebook through the analytics they provide us as a page, like it is through YouTube. And so what we come up with a different way to do the jersey giveaway raffle on Facebook, but you're going to be in the running for sure in August. So keep your chin up, big dog. We appreciate the support.
We value interaction above anything else, Scott, so don't feel bad at all. And kind of as an aside, every time I see your last name, I think of former Broncos legend Javonte Bosby. Remember him?
Oh, yeah. Okay. So let's real quick, guys, and again, last couple call or so for any burning topics. I want to look at the Niners. Defensively, Zach, what are some of the storylines you're going to be monitoring? What do you want and hope to see from the Broncos defense in the Bay?
Well, this is not a game that the Broncos will be game planning for. I mean, no preseason game really is, but the Niners, as we know, they have a very tenacious and stout defense, especially their front seven. So I want to see the protection hold up for us, even without Mike McGlinchey, who won't play. I want to see the running game get going. I want to see, the blocking improve up front with Ben Powers specifically. And I want to see Quinn Miners start to take that next step forward. I just want to see the Broncos own the line of scrimmage. I want to see long sustained drives, preferably ending in touchdowns, not miss field goals, and just look like you're coming together. And if you can do that, even in a preseason game against that type of defense, it's a victory.
The positive, going back to some of what Luke has reported in his camp notebooks, one of the guys, two of the guys that have been consistent positive in the positive section, Nick Bonito, Jonathan Cooper. And we saw some of that. Actually, I mean, both of them showed out decently in Arizona, but Bonito ended up exiting early with a little bit of a hip tweak, but he ended up okay, and he's back at practice this week. So he's going to be good to go Saturday. But that's so important because Baron Browning, of course, still in the wind with his injury and recovery from surgery and all that. So the top two guys, Randy Gregory, we know injury history, hard time just staying on the field. And then Frank Clark, who, look, doesn't have that same injury jacket, Zach, but is longer in the tooth. You need to have a pass rush depth chart that you can count on. Doesn't need to be world beaters, doesn't need to be, replete with Shaq Barrett's at every spot, but guys that you can count on. And last year we saw you couldn't count on Nick Bonito. You could throw him in there on clear and obvious passing situations and hope for the best. But he just was getting trucked and moved around, and he was a plaything for NFL offensive lines last year when it came to the running game. But he's put on weight. Having his old position coach from college there has definitely made a difference for Nick Bonito, and he has been a phenomenal stud. I mean, if you talk to Luke, making veteran offensive tackles of the Broncos, we're talking Bowles, we're talking McGlinchey, we're talking Fleming, Guys like that look a fool in one-on-ones and team drills. And I was hoping to see more of it Friday night, but he got hurt. And so the Broncos were just like, pull him. So I want to see more of this Nick Bonito cat because, again, he's the team's first pick last year, a second rounder, albeit, but the team's first draft selection who made zero impact as a rookie. And then Jonathan Cooper, another guy that you got to convert, Zach, some of that camp practice momentum into production on the field and not just in setting the edge. And I mean, that's important. Obviously, that's got to be a part of the equation, but let's see some pressures.
Yeah, someone in the chat earlier asked about Benito's status, and as Chad just talked about, he returned to practice, and I think he'll play at least somewhat against the Niners. But remember, this was what VJ said was the best group of pass rushers he's been around. They're like 6 or 7 deep, especially when you consider that Drew Sanders can provide pressure off the edge if you play him at OLB. So in this day and age, you have to have more than one. But when someone like Jonathan Cooper, who, by the way, is so out kicking his coverage as a former 7th round pick, he's had a training camp like a 1st round pick. When he's like your 5th string guy, you're in really good shape. I cannot wait to see the Broncos get after the quarterback this season.
Rocking the number 0 jersey now too. Mike, thank you, bro. He says, I'm seeing things written about our quarterback too, that he may become QB3 with Ben DiNucci playing really well. Is this true? It's true that DiNucci has all the momentum, and that has translated, Zach, from practice to the first preseason game. And in the wake of that first preseason game, that hasn't changed. In other words, if you're looking at it from like a stock report, DiNucci's going like this, and Stidham's going like this. But it gets a little tricky, Zach, because even if DiNucci clearly plays better both in camp and preseason, the Broncos gave Stidham a 2-year, $5 million deal, and I don't have it right in front of me. I can pull it up after I serve it over to you on what the dead money is, but teams very often make decisions based on that kind of thing, and hopefully, it doesn't pan out that way with Sean Payton, but Ben DiNucci has been exciting so far. Like, really smooth athlete, easy going, like has the offense already down pat. And just when the lights are on and the pressure's on, he not only does he not wilt, Zach, but he seems to kind of come alive, and that's when the switch flips. So he's a little bit of a gamer. I want to see more from DiNucci in terms of, like, let's see some touchdown passes. He had a couple of really good drives for the team late in that Cardinals game.
I was going to make the exact same point. If they were on similar contracts, I feel like DiNucci would already be QB2 because he outplayed the hell out of Jarrett Stidham in the first preseason game. And as Joe Lombardi talked about yesterday, DiNucci just has that magic moxie. When they signed him, I compared him to Chad Kelly for good reason. He just is that gunslinger, very high ceiling, but a kind of a low floor. You can do some exciting things with him. He put the ball behind his back yesterday during practice to avoid a sack. He's just one of those fun quarterbacks you like to watch. So you're spot on. I think the contract could keep Jarrett Stidham 2 years, $10 million as the quarterback too. But in terms of who's leading who right now, I have to think DiNucci has the edge.
Well, I think that contract definitely keeps him on the roster, but that doesn't preclude the Broncos from, if anything were to happen to Russ, knock on wood, going to DiNucci first, because here's the bottom line. Thank you, Scott, Mr. Producer. The Broncos lose money if they cut Stidham. $2 million dead money next year if they cut him. $5 million dead on the cap on a $3 million cap charge this year. So he says he won't play on $7 million next year. Right. So he's going to be on the roster this year for sure. And if they were to move on from him at any point, they are going to end up losing some money. So he's on the roster for the foreseeable. But Zach, that doesn't, again, preclude Sean Payton from going, look, I got to maintain credibility, not only across the roster, but in my quarterback room. DiNucci outplayed him. He's number 2. That could happen. I'm not saying it's happened yet, but it could happen.
Yeah, I don't want to come off like I'm rooting against him. I actually want to see him improve. I want to see what the Broncos loved about him so much to give him that contract. The way that Sean Payton talked about Stidham when they signed him was that he can be a potential future starter. I did not see that in the first preseason game. I saw more of Brett Rippon, just a very
Yeah.
Medium floor, but very low ceiling, not the strongest arm, not the most physically imposing, just a vanilla type of quarterback. I want to see him be what the Broncos thought he could be.
George Fox, great to see you tonight, big dog. It says, great pod, guys. Denver Broncos for life, MHH for life. Thank you, bro. Phil saying, great show tonight. Chad, Zach, and Deacon Scott. Mike talking about the hashtag Ronk. Must be working late, so I'll cover for him. LOL, MHH for life. Thank you, bro. We really do appreciate that. You know this. And then last one, we got a dip from the Lady D. Again,
wow.
top rope. Big
MBD.
baller shot caller. She says, Garrett Bowles needs to go. We still need offensive line help. I think the coach needs to make a move to shore up that line. Wow. Thank you again, Deanna. And a lot of people with what's going on. I haven't seen the update on Armstead, but like people have been trying to connect the possibility of Miami perhaps being interested in Bowles and whatnot.
I think I saw that Armstead is going to be okay. I don't know the exact injury, but it's not, I don't think severe. So
all I saw, dude, was Tyreek Hill tell the media that on his way off the field, Armstead's like, I'm cool, bro. I'm just old.
Yeah, I'm just old. Yeah, it happens. I mean, I don't know what's going on with Miami, but I can't foresee the Broncos trading away Garrett Bowles after one preseason game. Again, if this continues into the regular season, like if he just bombs against Max Crosby in week 1, then I will start to press the panic button. But this is a new scheme. They're not all together yet with McGlinchey being out. Garrett Bowles' first game off leg surgery. It's going to take some time. Hopefully, Deanna, we see a little bit of improvement on Saturday.
And it is worth mentioning that of the 3 quarterbacks who saw the field Friday night for the Broncos, DiNucci was the only one that had protection. That 3rd and 4th string unit held up against the Cardinals' 3rd and 4th string defense. So, you know, maybe you'll see a different kind of rotation from Peyton in game 2. And then with the starters, Zach not expected to play at all in the 3rd preseason game. It'll be interesting to see how it kind of coalesces there for the quarterback, backup quarterback position. But then we got to dip.
Yeah, that last preseason game next week against the Rams, that is going to be the biggest decider in my opinion, because as you laid out, let's assume Russ doesn't play. That means a half for Stidham, more than likely, and a half for DiNucci. And if DiNucci continues his momentum into week 2, and then he does better in week 3 and has that half of football to himself, it's going to make a very interesting decision for Sean Payton. What do I do behind Russ?
Real quick, I just wanted to say hello to John Libick, Greg Smith, early in tonight's conversation on Facebook, guys. It was great to see you tonight. But we got a few messages for you before we dip on out.
That was honestly a tremendous and very fast. I look up and I see it's 57 and a half minutes. And I think, where does the time go? But y'all do that. Y'all make that possible. If you haven't done so, please follow the podcast on Twitter at the MHH Pod. You can follow the mothership account, the main account at Mile High Huddle, Chad at Chad and Jensen, myself at Kelberman NFL, and Scott, our producer, at Scout Kennedy. If you guys want some merch, we're always rocking, always showing off, always wearing. Check out mhhmerch.com and get you some. If you haven't done so, drop us a like at facebook.com/Mile High Huddle Pod. Follow us on Insta at mile_high_huddle. And make sure, if you haven't, you're leaving your football pre-save 5-star review for a chance to win some of that merch each and every single month. But listen up, this is the most important, guys and gals. Make sure you're subscribing, liking, and sharing this video and every video you see on the MHH channel. It really helps us grow and reach more Broncos fans just like you.
Amen. Also, shout out on YouTube to Todd Osendorf, Kevin also, David, very active in the chat, William, Orange Bucky. Appreciate you guys. And if I didn't mention you, don't think that it's not because we don't love you. We do. But a really unique, special, next level shout out to these great Super Chat superstars and supporters on Facebook tonight. David McElrath, Sam Bam, Gary Palmer, Michaela Parker, the Duchess, Drake Wally, KB82, Eclipse Stormborn. Great to see you, Troy. Brent P, Troy Boer, the Lady D going off, the original Dizzy D on Facebook, Mike Reno, Phil McLaughlin, Scott Busby, George Fox. Much love and respect, you guys. Thank you so much. Tomorrow morning, don't forget, you got some Legends of Mile High with Tom Hall, and then Dove Valley Deep Divers Friday night. Saturday, orange and blue view, but I'm not sure exactly yet what's going to happen with the gut reaction. So stay tuned for that. But much love. Have a great weekend. And we'll be talking to you, obviously, in and around preseason game 2 Saturday. So stay tuned. We'll announce what the plan is for the gut reaction.
Enjoy the game Saturday, everybody. Have a great start to your weekend. Take care. And as always, go Broncos.